Canada's skies have always told a story of dependence. For decades, its fighter jets were built elsewhere, controlled elsewhere, and permitted elsewhere. But somewhere in the quiet corridors of power, that story began to change. It started with whispers. Whispers about a fighter jet that shouldn't have been in the conversation at all. Canada's Air Force was aging. Its CF-18 Hornets, built for a different era, were no longer capable of matching modern threats. The obvious path, the expected path, was clear. Follow tradition, follow the alliance, buy American. But something else was happening in the shadows. A quiet Scandinavian nation, known for neutrality and precision rather than spectacle, had entered the conversation. Sweden, and its fighter, the Saab Gripen, was suddenly being spoken about in rooms where it was never supposed to be welcome. Why would Canada, a nation bound tightly to its closest ally through decades of shared defense infrastructure, risk that relationship for a jet built in a country of 10 million people? The question alone was enough to make officials nervous, because the answer wasn't really about jets. Not at first, it was about something far more dangerous: independence. Officially, the story was simple. Canada was evaluating its options, as any responsible government would. But beneath that calm procedural language, leaked documents told a different story. The Gripen wasn't just a fighter under consideration. It was a symbol of a country trying to step outside a decades-old dependency on foreign-built military hardware. And that symbol had enemies. Intelligence agencies began paying closer attention. Lobbyists moved through Ottawa's political circles, working quietly to slow the deal, stall it, bury it if possible. Officials who supported the Gripen were warned, in careful, indirect language, that there would be consequences if Canada moved forward. Nothing was ever said outright, but everything was understood. The deeper this story was investigated, the stranger it became. The Gripen wasn't built like the F-35. It wasn't designed around massive, billion-dollar air bases and constant dependency on manufacturer support. It was designed for survival. It could land on ordinary highways. It could be refueled and rearmed by a small team of technicians in minutes, then sent back into the sky. It was built by a nation that had always expected, one day, to fight while outnumbered. For Canada, a country with an enormous and exposed northern frontier, that kind of self-sufficiency wasn't just appealing, it was strategically significant, and that was exactly the problem. For decades, Canadian defense contracts had been quietly woven into American supply chains. Parts, software, weapon systems, maintenance. All of it tied back to decisions made outside Canada's own borders. Choosing the Gripen threatened to unravel that arrangement, and industries built on that arrangement do not let go easily. Leaked memos describe growing unease. Meetings between Canadian officials and Swedish defense representatives were reportedly being watched closely. Warnings circulated about the diplomatic cost of moving too far, too fast. And in the public sphere, a curious pattern emerged. Articles began appearing almost in unison, describing the Gripen as unproven, as unsuited to Canada's harsh climate, as a risk not worth taking. Insiders called it something else. A coordinated campaign, not of facts, but of narrative control. Still, behind closed doors, the deal reportedly kept moving. Reports described a framework unlike anything Canada had been offered before, one that would grant it real control over its own fleet. Not just ownership, sovereignty, the ability to modify, upgrade, and arm its aircraft without needing permission from anyone else. That single detail explains almost everything that followed, because a Canada capable of arming and adapting its own air force without asking was a Canada that had quietly stepped outside the usual chain of command. To understand why this mattered so much, you have to go back to a moment buried in classified training records. During a routine exercise, Canadian pilots flying older jets were reportedly forced to wait for outside approval before testing certain systems. A small delay, almost meaningless in peacetime, but it revealed something uncomfortable. In a real crisis, that same delay could cost everything. That single moment crystallized the argument for change. With the Gripen, Sweden wasn't just offering hardware. It was offering technology transfer, joint production, and the chance for Canadian engineers to help build the very jets they would fly. For the first time in a long time, independence in the skies felt achievable. But independence rarely goes unpunished. Soon, politicians who had quietly supported the Gripen found themselves facing sudden scrutiny. Old controversies resurfaced. New accusations appeared. One by one, prominent voices in favor of the deal grew quiet. It looked to those watching closely less like coincidence and more like erasure. Yet the project didn't die. It simply went underground. Negotiations reportedly continued in private, shielded from media and outside observation. But something more troubling followed. Files related to the Gripen's radar systems, its electronic warfare capabilities, its integration with Canadian defense networks, reportedly vanished from government servers. No one could say for certain who was responsible. Suspicion fell not only on outside actors, but on forces working from within. By this point, the Gripen wasn't simply a procurement decision. It had become a quiet battlefield of its own. As time passed, the official position stayed the same. Still reviewing, still undecided. But unofficially, the project lived on in a much smaller circle, protected and hidden. Warnings continued to surface, vague but pointed, suggesting that choosing the Gripen might mean isolation from joint missions or shared intelligence. No one explained exactly what that meant. The ambiguity itself was the message. Meanwhile, Sweden had already prepared a version of the Gripen built specifically for Arctic operations, an environment where the F-35 reportedly struggled. Quick delivery, lower maintenance costs, accelerated pilot training. For a country whose northern airspace faced regular incursions from Russian aircraft, this wasn't a marginal advantage. It was exactly what Canada needed. But every advantage invited a counterattack. Defense forums filled with claims that the Gripen was too small, too outdated, too limited, much of it tracing back to accounts linked to major defense contractors. Every day the aircraft remained a serious contender, represented lost revenue for someone else. And yet Canadian pilots who quietly flew the Gripen came back with reports that contradicted the narrative entirely. Superior agility, radar performance that exceeded expectations, an electronic warfare suite capable of jamming systems that other alliance members preferred not to discuss publicly. One pilot was said to have remarked quietly that if the full truth were known, the outcome would already be decided. That was precisely the truth no one wanted made public. Today, the Gripen deal exists as something between a procurement file and a ghost story. Nothing officially signed, nothing officially closed. But behind that silence, reporters have described mysterious break-ins, vanished data, and abrupt delays with no clear explanation. Evaluations extended far past schedule, meetings canceled without cause, and billions eventually redirected toward American suppliers. The Gripen didn't fail on its own merits. It was simply never permitted to win. And still, the story refuses to fully disappear. Rumors persist that quiet agreements remain in place, that Canadian engineers continue studying Gripen systems, and that somewhere in classified archives, the blueprint for a different kind of independence is simply waiting for the right moment to resurface. The full truth of the Gripen deal remains buried, layered beneath politics, money, and secrecy. But one thing is clear. Canada came closer than it ever had before to stepping outside the shadow of dependency. And that is why this remains one of the most quietly contested stories in its modern military history. The only question left is whether the truth will ever surface, or whether it will stay buried in archives no one is permitted to open. What do you think about all this? Tell us in the comments below. See you in the next one.